are here. We've got our special mates. How do I pull my mates up? There they are. How's going, gentlemen?
Just as long as you're pulling us up and not doing any other kind of porn.
No.
Don't be dirty, Dave.
I know, 30 seconds into the stream and I'm already in with the innuendo. Sorry. It's been a long week.
Call you Dirty Dave from now on. All the jerking off jokes.
Well, there's also that radio DJ, Dangerous Dave. I'm not sure if he's based in Melbourne, but he's been around for decades.
I thought it was pretty good to see Craig Kelly call COP29 a wank fest today on Twitter. Coming from Craig Kelly. That's
nice.
That's great.
Craig's unleashing.
Oh,
he could come on Thirsty Thursday. We need people to come on the
show. I commented on there. I prefer the term circle jerk.
Yeah.
Sorry, I devolved this super fast. I don't know why you even had me on here.
I mean, we brought you on because you have a racist hat, and we thought we've got to bring the racist hat on.
The white supremacist hat.
Yeah, make America great again. Great means white.
Look, it's even got the American flag on it. Like, how racist is that? Horrific.
It's incredible. It's crazy that they straight away they did actually think make it great again meant make it white again.
Well, that was the 2016 Trump derangement, but I still can't believe in 2024 they were still calling him Hitler.
And with a straight face. Like,
they believe
what is that? I mean, this is why I've been getting a few people have been. I did a piece on the whole long range missiles into Russia this week, and a few people going.
They've just attacked Ukraine with an ICBM non-nuclear, which is apparently that's not an escalation because it's not nuclear. All of the pro-war neocon studio people such as Konstantin Kisin, Drew Pavlou, Julia Hartley-Brewer were like, oh, Putin's been threatening nukes for 2.5 years. He's bluffing, even though he's called Mad Vlad. But apparently it's not an escalation that he ICBM'd a Ukrainian city, but because it wasn't a nuclear one. Right. So, he's still bluffing.
See, this is what I was saying. Like, this whole Biden signing off the use of long-range missiles. It's the only word I've got for it is retarded, which probably fits for it's probably medically accurate for Biden right now to say that word. Like, it's not even insulting; it's just the truth. But why would you do this? Like, Trump has gone in, been elected president-elect with a mandate to go and sort peace out, and so Trump's like, "I'm going to sort it out in 24 hours," and Biden goes, "The heck you will," and signs this thing off, and Putin is not perfect. I'm not like saying Putin is I'm not putting Putin on a pedestal, but by the same token, he made really clear where his lines were around NATO and Ukraine, and they just kept pushing and pushing and pushing until he's like, well, I've got to react now, otherwise I'm the toothless the tiger, the clawless bear. I'll do something. Yeah. And then
I really hope he just takes the Black Sea, go all the way down the coast of the Black Sea.
Yeah.
Just a slither of Bulgaria, Romania, and then get right next to Constantinople. And we should do a deal and be like, Russia, we want you to have Constantinople.
Take Turkey.
You can have the whole thing. And pit them against the Muzzos, just be like.
It's just one of those things
where
I'm
like to see happen.
And so people go, you like, well, I just followed you, Dave, because I saw you bit of Lydia Thorpe, but I like that. Like, that was better. Yeah, she's a nutcase. But you sound too pro-Russian on this one. Oh, what do you mean? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, what are you even talking about, guys?
You just want him to take every domino down. Next minute, Russia has Constantinople again. Bang.
I'm like...
Reinstate the bloody Byzantine.
My point is, why are we launching long-range missiles that we know are going to just mess things up and interrupt peace treaties and escalate the problem at this time when we're kind of the 11th hour of the conflict?
Fuel. I just want $1 a litre fuel. I want everything to go back to 2016. Yeah. And
like I said, I don't think Putin's perfect, but I also don't think he's quite the demon that we're told he is, right? Like, look how we just talked about. They called Trump Hitler. So how can we then go, everything they say about Putin must be 100% accurate?
The Putin, there's no real opposition to Putin there. taken care of. I mean,
I know, but I mean, but you complain. I think there's this whole thing like we're not perfect either. Like if you think about all the things that we do around all the social media restrictions that are going on in the UK, people being arrested for that and this and that and the other. Like I just think you got to take it with a grain of salt and go, yeah, Putin's got problems, but I don't think he's also quite as bad as they want us to believe. And these things are complicated. They're not just black and white. And at the end of the day, why are you escalating a war when Trump's about to come and knock their heads together and cause peace?
And when all these NPC people who, you know, are worried about Elon Musk and Trump's friendship, but all the NPCs are like, yeah, like they're almost cheering the war on. Like they want the escalation of Ukraine.
Saw them signing the missiles. I'm like, how dark is that? I want my name on this one that's going to kill 59 people. I bet mine's going to kill 74 people.
We've got some special guests that are in the studio, guys. We better bring them on before we rant all night. Benny, you absolute legend. How are you, bro?
Yeah, g'day, guys. Doing very well, thank you. Yeah,
Mate.
sorry for the delay, mate. We just had a few things on, had to get sorted.
We've got two. What hat have you got? Is that a MAGA hat as well, or is it something?
I do. This one was picked up from Mar-a-Lago. I got the 45 and the 47 on it. I've got a whole bunch. Do you know what? I'll go and retrieve them. I'll be back in a second, mate. I grabbed a bunch of different ones from Mar-a-Lago.
He's got the legit Mar-a-Lago hats. I
pull
can't
you
compete
off
with that.
and
My
bring you
dodgy $15 eBay number doesn't come anywhere close to Mar-a-Lago. I mean, mine does have 45, 47 on it too, so there's that. But and it says Trump on the back.
It's almost pink. Like eventually you're going to wear it that much.
It's not pink. It's just my lighting. It's just the camera.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But when
well,
you're
yeah,
like
you
a
need
true patriot, in like 10 years, when you're 50, that thing
It'll
will
be
turn pink and you'll be
Yeah,
like,
eventually.
but you'll be a badass for wearing it then. Yeah.
I'll wear my salmon shirt with my salmon MAGA hat.
Fuck yeah. Bring back the salmon. Remember metrosexuals, Dave? You would remember that.
Yep.
All the
that
gays were
was-
kind of like, we were taking the best part of the gayness, which was just trying to become, you know, cozying up to some chicks.
Well, yeah, it's like
Yeah.
grooming, like you know the sort of shaped beards and stuff, and wearing a bit
yeah,
of cologne
that
and like
obviously that type of grooming, not the more
not
insidious
the other
kind.
kind of grooming.
But it was that. Remember that show, Queer Eye for the Straight Guy? That was
Yeah.
about making
was
Making
over
straight dudes
the-
look
the
gay.
average Joe slobs.
Mm.
Obviously, they would have vetted these guys before they did the show to check whether they were okay with gays.
Maybe they just told them they were straight. They just were like
I
pretend.
think
they
it
were
was
straight.
I think it was Heineken. Heineken did the best ad campaign once, where they got two random people, this bloke and this chick, and they put them in a room with a bunch of like crates and barrels and stuff and some instructions where they built a bar. And so, you know, they just, you know, they never met each other before, knew nothing about each other, but they were put in a room and said, follow these instructions and build a bar so you can have a beer. And so they build the bar and they crack open a beer. And as they're about to drink the beer, they project up on the screen, each of them sort of saying all this stuff. And they're both like complete opposites politically. And like they believe all these different things about the world and stuff.
Man.
But then it's like, have a beer and chat about it. And because they've just like worked together for 2 hours building a bar, they're kind of like semi-mates. And so they're not like, oh, you horrible, offensive person. Like they're like, oh, cool, we can talk. Like, and there was this great ad campaign that shows you can be opposites, but doesn't mean you can't get along and you have to hate each other. I thought,
yeah. That's my like my survival theory. It's like, would I prefer to survive on an island alone or with a transgender Muslim? You know, and like, have I got a better chance?
Depends. Can they build stuff? Are they handy? Because if you're on a desert island, you want someone who's handy. If they're just a mouth to feed,
There was,
but you can make them like, you know, you could be like, right, bro, you're collecting firewood. It's so fucking simple. We need to keep this fire burning, cunt.
Yeah.
And then he's helping you. Now you're mutually surviving together. Oh, I got to bring on Andrew. He's been waiting patiently. This is our mate, Andrew. What's his name? Tim. He came
Andrew
on
Wilson.
last week and he was quite an intelligent, insightful bloke. G'day, mate.
oh,
We flipped him on a little bit. How you going?
Lol. Yeah, hey, how are you, Dusty? G'day, Dave and Tim. What's happening?
Nice to meet you, mate.
Have you had your hair cut, or is it just slicked back since last week?
Look back.
Yeah, you've got some of the Trump gel.
Absolutely.
He's
What
on
is-
Metro. He's he heard the vibe. We're going for the metrosexual look, so he's like, I'll get on that.
That's right.
I've seen
Yeah.
Andrew with the hipster glasses on as well. He's got the look.
I love what we got on the
Pat
chat.
down.
Margot's written on the chat that was just gays grooming straights, the Queer Eye thing, part of their agenda to make converts.
All right, where's our mate? We're bringing Benny back. Benny, how was America? You back in the great southern land?
I am, man. It was a time. It was awesome. G'day, Andrew. Nice to meet you, mate. And I should have said hello, Tim. And g'day, Dave.
Hi.
Enjoyed your conversation as well with the comedian as well, Dave. So well done.
Oh, Biddy, yeah, she was great. It was awesome, chat.
Yeah, so America was all happening. The days leading up to it, of course, there was a bit of consternation. People wondering what the hell is going to happen if they listen to MSNBC or CNN. You'd never seen anything like it, man. So there was a lot of hatred. Hitler was about to take the White House, and they wanted to prevent Hitler and the guy who was going to put all women back in the kitchen, etc. But then on election eve, mate, there was a little bit of jubilation in the room for many people. Then obviously it looked like he was going to get up, and by about midnight, the internet crashed in Boca Raton, which is about 5-7 kilometers south of Palm Beach, where Mar-a-Lago was. So all of our internet went out at the studio, and none of our cell phones' internet was working either, regardless of who our service providers were.
Yeah.
We could all still watch TV, but the internet was all knocked out, so it almost seemed very coincidental that I didn't want anyone from that region to be able to be online.
And
from
were you
midnight
live
onwards.
streaming? Like you were live streaming, everything just goes.
Yeah, so everything was working perfectly, but then when Trump hit about 240, 250, everything just crashed. And so there was no internet till the next morning, which was quite interesting. But yeah, so I've got a bit of merch, man. There was a Trump store over there, which was unbelievable. There was a line around the block. It looked like a Russian bread line from back in the day, man. There were hundreds of people. They were selling out everything. They had framed Donald Trump Playboy editions and everything from back in the day when Donald Trump was on the cover of Playboy with one of these famous bunnies. They were being sold like memorabilia framed, man, for about $2,500 a piece. And I think Trump had signed them My Greatest Day. President Donald Trump, when he was there doing that type of stuff. They had big Rambo fuck off knives and everything that were being sold with like Donald Trump's signature in them. All different types of stuff, man. You could buy anything and everything that was Trump, including shoes, mugs, you name it, man. So I grabbed a bit of stuff from there. So I grabbed this one, of course. I got the official, the real presidential one, man.
Nice.
This is a special one that everyone on the plane, everywhere where I went, and particularly in LAX, they didn't like this one at all. This was the gold Trumper styles. That's actually like a DC brand as well and everything. So these are the limited edition. A couple of guys at the airport were offering me like $100 for it. I said no chance. I'm not going to do that. That was good. But this is the Mac Daddy. This is the signature edition Donald Trump,
Ooh,
the legendary styles. So yeah, I've got a few more, but we don't have to wield out all the goods just yet.
man.
Yeah, but it was an unbelievable time. So after he won, every dude who had a pickup truck, they were just rolling down the main streets with the biggest American flags and Trump flags, Trump rainbow flags, Trump riding on tank flags, all of that type of shit as well. Tooting air horns, playing the Trump songs, man, YMCA, I'm proud to be an American, all that type of stuff. So all that was happening. And then for the next couple of nights as well in Delray Beach and Palm Beach and everything out in the main streets where there's all the bars and stuff like that, man. Everyone was just revving engines, doing burnouts. In a place there in Delray, they've actually, the gay lobby has painted one of the main intersections in the town square in rainbow flag on the bitumen. So guys walking up in their pickup trucks doing burnouts and everything on that as well. It was pretty awesome, man.
That's a hate crime.
Yeah, it was a hate crime up until this time, but in that little region, in that county, man, it was Donald Trump's territory. It was absolutely sick. There's a big bridge that leads across to Mar-a-Lago as well, and heaps of people had parked their car sort of a mile and a half away from there because you can't get in because the Secret Service has got both roads leading into Mar-a-Lago blocked off unless you've got special passes. But they let foot traffic go onto that bridge, and Mar-a-Lago's in the background behind it with all the super yachts and everything parked there, and they're all just there having like a tailgate party, getting on it, Yahoo and cheering. Tits out for Donald Trump and all this type of stuff as well from the lovely American ladies as well, man. So we got some American milk jugs on display and everything. So yeah, it was an unbelievable time, man. A great time. Like I wouldn't miss it for the world. I can't wait to get back over there. I might be getting across there for the inauguration, then a few other things after that as well.
Legend.
Nice.
Awesome. We can't beat that. We might as well end the stream now.
Repeat.
We enjoyed watching it live from afar on our live stream. So yeah, that would have been when he was on the brink of victory. There was everybody suspicious, the internet going out during that time, because even though Australian internet shit, we were fine.
Spot on, Tim. So the internet Elijah has hooked up in the studio over there is better than even what people can get in South Korea, mate. So it was better than South Korea and Japan's internet combined. It's the best internet known to man. He's paying thousands for it. It's literally faster than Starlink. But yeah, that crashed. Then everything else crashed. And then we had a secondary backup system. That was absolutely no signal. And then, yeah, most importantly, on all of our phones as well. Like I was using T-Mobile over there. A couple of guys had AT&T and a few other different providers. None of our internet coverage was working. You could still call people on your phone. Your phone was still able to call out, but there was just no internet service, man. So, yeah, very, very coincidental.
Make it into the news, like were people like, "What the f's going on here?" Like,
no, I don't think so, because what everyone did then, because it happened around midnight and it looked like he was definitely going to get up, everyone's just like, fuck it, okay, we can stop the stream, let's all jump in the cars and let's get on up there, man, because just close to Mar-a-Lago, there was the convention center where he came and gave that victory speech and everything as well, where there were thousands of people.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone's like, okay, cool, we don't have to do streaming anymore, everyone jump in the cars and let's get on up there and let's get amongst it, man. So, you know, people were skinny dipping and stuff, boys. Like it was all happening. It was like 1776. It was like smashing the British. It was like when Rocky beat Drago. It was the whole.
Well, Rocky's on board with Trump now.
Yeah, where was he before though? Like all these celebrities, they come out after the win. I'm like, you could have helped, you could have influenced. You got Arnie going, screw your freedoms, and it's like, where was Stallone going?
Well, he's actually moved.
Keep moving forward.
He's moved. He's got a big mansion there in Palm Beach and everything as well, and he's got a unlimited membership to Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah,
several of them do. So yeah, he's going to be there all the time now, and he gives talks and stuff there now. Yeah, they were happy to come on out. So Elon was up there. Rogan wasn't there, but Dana White was there.
But they both look the same with their bald heads.
No, it was awesome, man. So do you know what? Yeah, come on, we're gonna make Benny. You got to make a trip, boys. You got to come over at some stage, if it's for the inauguration or something else. So what Trump's going to do next year as well, in the middle of next year, it's like the 250-year anniversary of America, and he's going to do the equivalent of a World's Fair. And it's going to be, I think, in Iowa, where they normally have the Iowa State Fair, but it's going to run for about 4 months. And every single state in the United States is going to come there and put on a week-long display of everything they offer and everything they do. And so that's just going to be party central, or party zone. It's going to be like Trump's own city for literally 4 months straight, man. And people are going to come and converge on that place from everywhere, all different states. And yeah, it's going to be awesome, man. You're going to be able to shoot pigs and do all different types of shit. So yeah, that's a good one to get across to as well.
Sick.
And he'll open the LA Games in 2028.
With no rainbow flags, I'm told. With no rainbow flags, I'm told.
Because Paris's opening was gay. Like, it was literally gay.
It was also a very, like, they used the body positive models as well.
You know what? Regardless of all the things they do, Olympic opening ceremonies are weird. Like, right? Like they're all kind of weird. That's part for the course.
The fact it wasn't even in a stadium; it was by the river.
That's my problem. They're spread out over the city. So much of it was pre-recorded and put up on screens. You couldn't really follow what was going on because it was weird, like Assassin's Creed guy running across the rooftops doing stuff. And I'm worried that LA is going to go, well, we're Movie Central. We're going to pre-produce the pants off this thing, and it's going to again be overproduced, like crap, and not in the stadium. Like if they want to produce a good experience. They need to just do it in the stadium, like
Yeah,
like Australia did.
Or like London did in 2012.
Like London did, like even
theirs was
Japan. Like
wicked.
Japan did some cool stuff with the Tokyo one. I know there was no one there because it was COVID, but like their little pictograms and other bits and stuff, like it was cool. I thought France, even regardless of the woke political stuff, just the framing of it, because I thought that was crap.
I went to Paris in 2013 or 14. Took my missus there when she was 21, I think. It was beautiful. It was awesome. I loved it. And I thought, they just didn't embrace, I want to see, French culture. There's actually a bit there, the architecture. There's actually the bakeries with the baguettes and the French food. Every bite is so good. They do things amazing over there. And I thought to myself, they had Lady Gaga singing. I'm like, that's
right.
fucking
And Celine
shit.
Dion.
Yeah.
And we went to even say Paris, Disneyland, and it's fully Frenchified, or you know what I mean. That's a part of the deal why they built that Disneyland was it had to be fully uniquely saturated in Frenchness. So you're like, how did you get from that point of even Disneyland had to be saturated in Frenchness to we'll just do a fucking Lady Gaga Olympic opening? It's fucking
there's
insanity.
no sure. Isn't there lots of French singers that they could showcase?
Even if they're not super famous, if she's doing the whole Moulin Rouge cabaret thing, get one of their French cabaret singers. I'm sure they've got someone. They didn't need an American celebrity.
Yeah, where was Tina Arena, mate? She was a big time in France. She made it huge over there after she left Australia more than a decade ago.
Did
she? She actually, when she left here, she went over to France and she was a number one hit type of girl over there. She became huge in France, my man.
She's been cancelled by the dance stands here in her home city of Melbourne because she dared oppose Dan's lockdowns and stood up for the creative arts community.
Yeah, it was for her own selfish, she was like, I'm fucking broke now and I can't make a living. But it's fair enough. Good
and I think it's worth noting as well. So in the United States, Trump's going to go hardcore against the trans kid stuff and the hypersexualization of children. But there's no dramas over there with just people who are gay or lesbian or whatever it is. So all of that's totally included. They're adults; they can make their own decisions. So there's no prejudice whatsoever against them. No. So I wouldn't want people to get that twisted.
Right. But it's also he's taking the stand against the men and women's sports.
Yeah, man, that is happening actually. So there's a senator, Senator Macy Grace. So she was over there, and she's basically just said because in the United States they've had somebody, the first trans person who's now entered Congress.
From Delaware.
Yes, and so there's been a lot of back and forth about which bathroom will that individual have to use now, and the person who was a bloke who now says he's not a bloke, although he's still got the bloke's tackle. He wanted to walk into the female bathrooms there in Congress, and a few of them came out and said that's not going to happen whatsoever. And then they ABC journalists and a few other journalists ambushed a couple of the women that are sitting on the hill there. And said to them, well, what are you going to do? And they said, listen, we don't give a shit, but nobody with a penis is going to enter our female spaces. So if the individual wishes to go and get it chopped off, well, yes, they could be granted entry, but I think he might be a little bit reluctant or hesitant to actually have it chopped off. Yeah, that's the one.
I heard they've all got en suites in their offices anyway.
Yeah. So
what the heck?
They can...
Just Fetterman said they can come use my bathroom whenever they like. Surely they've got their own bathroom.
Yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's got a sign outside of her office which says there are only two genders, trust the science.
Yeah, and I think AOC's offered an invitation to come into her office and train AOC and teach AOC and demonstrate to AOC how she can piss standing up.
Do you think that this tranny would pass as a looks like a Sheila? Looks like
yeah.
on the beers. You're gonna be like,
the
"Hang
voice
down."
sounds feminine now. It's not like some just it still sounds like the deep voice, but
Yeah, it's not Rachel Levine, Tim, correct? It's not Rachel Levine. It's not the person that RFK is replacing. It is slightly passable, but I would say that's a flattering picture with the right lighting from the right angle.
Can all of you intuitively know whether, like, just looking at a picture, whether it's a biological woman or it's a trans woman?
If they're Thai, probably not. But if they're Caucasian, most of the time.
We went to Thailand on a honeymoon, and there's like the trannies, and we were like, I was like looking. My missus like, they were trannies, lady boys. Have a look, and I was like, what? Oh yeah. And then we went. There was this tranny. I think they call it Ladyboy Alleyway or something, and you can buy roses, right? So I was like, I'll go buy you a rose, babe. And went up to the lady boy, and I was like, yeah, I'll buy a rose. And then she goes, oh, I'll get a photo. And it was like a Polaroid. So I'm standing there, arm around the tranny, getting the photo, and this tranny ripped her tit down and slapped my hand on the tit as they took the photo. And then I was just like,
was it
so
firm?
I had the full
Was it
squeeze.
firm, Dusty? Was it firm?
Oh, they were probably the most real fake tits I've ever felt. You know what I mean?
What? So,
to be honest,
I grabbed your hand to,
and she's kind of like ripped the hand down,
that's
and then
sexual assault.
grabbed my hand and went bang, just as the Polaroid photo was taken.
Yeah, that's sexual assault.
And we just laughed because the thing is about the trannies in Thailand, they're like comedians. They're actually taking the piss out of themselves and you, and the whole thing's like a big comedy show. So I think a lot of people maybe I don't know. Look, 20 years ago, trannies were a joke. Now, like a tranny, you'd be like, oh, they're so uptight, so angry, and you're just like, oh, you fucking ruined that. Well,
a lot of them are on Blue Sky now. That's the home of all the Marxists, the trannies, and the degenerate fetishists. Have you followed there's that new account on X, Libs of Blue Sky?
I don't need to see Mike Carlton raving and ranting and being a lunatic. He blocked me, and I'm happy about it.
Yeah, the angry old lefty, ex-shock jock with Trump derangement syndrome.
Just on him for a second as well. So he's obviously pretty prominent on X, has been for some time. He seemingly delights in antagonizing people and antagonizing them with the truth, mind you, a lot of the time. His denial of the truth, I should say, would be a better way to put it. His denial of the truth. And then if anyone even presents factual information to him or a contrary message, even slightly to the right of Stalin, he's just instantly, get the fuck out of here, right-wing nut job, blocked. He has got no time for anyone who does not cheerlead any view he holds.
I'm disappointed. I got blocked without the offensive FU message. I didn't get the DM. I just got the block. I'm like, oh, come on.
Sends you an abusive message and then blocks you.
Yeah, I don't get it. Because he portrays himself, I would have thought, and you can correct me with this as well, Tim, but I thought he was almost a pseudo-intellectual type, or at least
when he appears on television or radio. But yeah,
I grew up watching I'm Mike Carlton. This is 60 Minutes. Like he was like one of those guys. He was like
that was Richard Carlton who was 60 Minutes.
No, well, Mike was on it too, I think.
Yeah, one of them passed away, and they passed away around the time the mine collapsed.
Yeah, died at Beaconsfield.
That's correct. But yeah, getting back to the infamous one, the troublemaker, the pussy, because he is a bit of a pussy. Never once has he participated in the Twitter Spaces, for example. He literally will not entertain a conversation with anyone that he doesn't think is from his side, and I just think that's morally bankrupt as well. he hasn't got time to even demonstrate the power of his ideas, and he's not willing to make persuasive arguments. And I think that's why he shoots himself in the foot. But what I hate is these guys formulate an echo chamber around themselves. You don't have to agree with everything, but he literally will not entertain anyone with any type of
That's
message to
why.
himself. So he's a fraud, Tim. He's a fraud.
Yeah.
Like,
Blue
what-
Sky is their new safe space, even though they can say what they want on X. I wonder if I saw that there's an unofficial campaign to basically ratio elbow off X by the end of the year, and maybe he will open up a Blue Sky.
He's not managing his account. He's doing a little video. He doesn't read the comments.
Well, if Albo goes under Blue Sky, his profile picture is just going to be him at the very front of the line at the Sydney Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras, right there with all of the butch lesbians, etc. Andrew, what are your thoughts on this, mate? What do you think's going down with all this? And do you think with Trump coming in now, we'll be able to perhaps change the trajectory, at least entertain conversations in the public sphere, which for the last 4 years have been ridiculed? Are you looking at it with a little bit of buoyancy, thinking, you know what, we might be back here, gentlemen, at least in a conversational sense?
Well, there's a few different things going on. I think there's obviously the media fragmentation, which has been taking place progressively onwards from since he announced. That's been pretty apparent to everyone. There's there's his picks, obviously, which are very underwhelming in some cases, and somewhat positive in other areas. As far as the conversation goes, I think obviously since Elon bought X in 2020, that was a real sort of boost. Whether the movement's sort of going to grow during the presidency, typically radical movements grow when they're out of power. So we saw a lot of growth between 22 and 24 within the Biden presidency. So whether that's going to continue under Trump, I think it will continue, just not at the same sort of rate.
Because I even felt as soon as he got elected, I was like, I'm going to just chill back for a few weeks. And you know what I mean? I was like, yes. But I'm like, sweet. So then you kind of get comfortable. And then I was like, no, I can't get comfortable. We really got to re-energize ourselves and be the tip of the spear and keep fighting.
The way they sold it over there, boys, the way they sold it over in the United States, yes, everyone was very happy with it. They were jubilant, as I mentioned, and they were like, yes, we've actually done this. But okay, yeah, we've just stormed the beach of Normandy. We've taken the beachhead. We've eliminated the opposition right here. But now we've got to march in. So for the next couple of weeks, a few deep breaths, everyone restock, mate, get ready, get your energy all up, and we're going to get ready to launch into
Do you reckon that, the January 6 people, if they don't get released from jail, or if Trump doesn't come in and just be like that,
He better pardon or commute their sentences. We want Enrique freed.
If he doesn't do that, I think that we're going to turn on Trump a bit. Like, that's going to up the ante on Trump. People will be like, you're a fucking, what's this? You know what I mean? So I think there's got to be some kind of free the boys. I was considering doing a banner drop. We've got a new walk bridge in Brisbane City near the casino. It's ripe for the picking for a good banner drop,
So on election stream we had over there, we had a guy. I'll pull up his real name in a moment. I've just got to look through my ex followers, but he went by Ricky Vaughan. Ricky Vaughan, he was going by, and there was a big campaign about freeing Ricky Vaughan. So he was the individual that had actually made a video, a meme video in the prior election that was telling people, hey, you've got to go and vote, but the voting day was going to be a couple of days after the actual election. And so then Hillary Clinton's team came at him, and the weaponized DOJ came at him after Biden was in. And they tried to prosecute him for that, for election interference and all this other types of shit. A bit like when Count Dacula taught his dog how to make a salute, and from back in the day, and then they tried to prosecute Count Dacula for all of this horrendous stuff, and it was clearly just comedy. It was clearly just satirical.
Carl Rittenhouse is free. He's found not guilty.
Yeah,
He
so
got millions of dollars.
It
I
should be
reckon that's my prediction for like if Trump releases all the Jan 6 dudes, will they be able to sue and get compensation? Is that even possible, or is it
not
like
if it's a pardon or a commutation of sentence.
okay?
but some people have said that all of those people deserve at least $1 million each as well.
Fuck yeah.
But a lot of them, well, all they need is for their families to be looked after. If they have lost their homes because they've been incarcerated, they haven't been able to satisfy their mortgages for their homes, those individuals should go to the front of the line and they should be helped out. Other people who had financial means or own their own properties, haven't lost their property, for example, they wouldn't need an exuberant amount of compensation. But the MAGA movement in itself is pressing Donald Trump to do it. They're reiterating that this is what needs to happen. This was one of the main reasons why we decided to vote for you again, because we believe these people should be freed. We don't think they did anything wrong. Not every single person as well, gentlemen, of course. Like, we'd love a blanket approach, but the consensus over there is there were far too many people that did nothing wrong that were just swept up after all. There's footage of the police opening the doors and ushering them through. And a lot of those people have been incarcerated. And they're in federal prisons over there as well. So they're in real jails, man. It's pretty hardcore. They're put in certain areas and they're being treated very badly. And there's been widespread reporting of the treatment they've had to deal with whilst they're there. And it's not just bad food. It's literally an isolationist state in a sense, because they're all being placed into solitary. There's also footage over there that I saw where the reason why that thing really kicked off, it was very peaceful. It was a party atmosphere at first. They were mostly peaceful, a lot of them. And then for some reason, the DC police decided to start throwing stun grenades into the crowd and firing rubber bullets at them from distance. And that's why the crowd started to almost, get very restless, and they're all trying to escape and exit left, exit right, trying to run back behind themselves, whatever it may have been. There was a bit of a stampede because there were some agent provocateurs there. And that's why in some of the hearings that was put to the FBI director, how many embeds do you have in there? How many undercover operatives do you have in there? How many agent provocateurs do you have in there? And he failed to answer the question. And that's because they deliberately instigated it. And remember, Donald Trump had requested Nancy Pelosi send 10,000 people in there and National Guard and all these types of things to increase the numbers, but that was all denied. It was all denied. It was a staged, managed event. They wanted to kick it off, and that's what happened.
These two blokes, you would all know the what do we call them? The shaman.
Yeah.
The shaman. And then the other two blokes is Nick Oakes and Nick DiCarlo. So Nick DiCarlo, Nick Oakes were just released from prison. Maybe it's a week. It was a day before the election. So they got sentenced, I think, 5 years jail, and they ended up only doing 2. But yeah, it's pretty crazy that the day before the election, it's like they get, a week before the election, they're like, you boys are getting released on Friday or released next week. And they just let them go. And I don't think a conviction was recorded. And like I was watching their social media on January 6th, watching the whole thing, and they're just cracking jokes, having a laugh. They walked into the Capitol like it was just open to walk through. They were smashing Winnie Blues and just having a great time. And they were like, oh, yeah, we're done. That was awesome. Let's go to the pub for a beer. And they left. And then it was like 8 months later, you boys are getting going to court, and they were charged in 5 years they were supposed to serve, and now they're released. I think they don't have a conviction recorded, so maybe they could sue for damages, loss of income, millions.
Well, they should. I think we'd all agree with that, but it's unlikely.
Yeah.
Unless Trump would personally write them a check.
Maybe he should as well. Like Trump should personally write them all $1 million check. That would be the right thing to do. Release them all and then give them $1 million out of
with all the excess funds from his campaign instead of paying off the Democrats' bill.
Yeah, well, he's offered $20 million to Kamala Harris because although Kamala Harris ran through $1 billion in 7 weeks over there and still didn't get across the line, she actually spent $1 billion and $20 million or $1 billion $20 million. So
Yeah,
she's actually
and
20 million in the red now, and everyone's like, "Well, who's going to pay that?"
oh,
And
no,
Trump
yeah,
actually came out and said, "Well, I'll pay it." Like he was just taking the piss. And everyone's like, "Nah, fuck that. Don't give her that cash. That should go to these
well,
other people."
most of it was we found out she paid most of those celebrities to endorse her. As far as we know, Trump celebrity endorsements, Hulk Hogan, Kid Rock, Dr. Phil, they weren't paid.
And they're
Fucking
true
love
believers
Dr.
in it.
Phil.
And the individual who I mentioned earlier, Ricky Vaughan, yeah, his name was Douglas Mackey. So he was sentenced to 7 months in prison and fined $15,000 in his role for what they referred to as a conspiracy to interfere in the voters' rights in 2016. So they said he used his influence to give people false information. So yeah, but now he's out, he's free. He's on bail, as it were, and now he's appealing the case, which is good. But he should be able to be compensated as well. So if you can get across the line for him, that will set a precedent then to open the floodgates to everybody else. And somebody like Joe Biggs, they copped 17 years, gentlemen. Some of these dudes are copped
Yeah.
17 and 22 years.
Because
Yeah.
they used the Civil War charge. It hadn't been used since the Civil War.
But didn't the Civil War guys only end up doing 5 years as well? Like the head of the whatever they're called, the
Confederates?
Federation, or I don't know. You tell me. I'm not an American. I'm pretty sure the top dog of who was leading the South got 5 years jail and then was released. So it's like that was when we're a good Christian society. We're just like, yep, we forgive him.
Yeah,
He's
I
done his
remember it
time.
was like thinking the 20 years or whatever was crazy because at the same time we had all this stuff going on here with The Voice, and you had your Noel Pearsons and Lydia Thorpe sort of hating on the country and you know talking about having treaties with each other and stuff. I'm like, we're a sovereign nation. This sounds like seditious kind of talk. The way she always gets up there talks about rattling the cages of infiltrating the colony. I'm infiltrating the colony to tear it down from the inside. I'm like, that sounds like sedition. Now, it's like our laws, we don't have sedition laws, we've got treachery laws, which, unless they're actually inciting violence, nothing counts. But I'm like, this is ridiculous that you've got these guys that just turned up and did nothing wrong. Or they didn't even turn up, some of them that were charged. Like they were miles away. They didn't even go to the Capitol, and they got done for 20 years for these sedition laws. And here we have people literally saying they want to tear down our system of government, and they're paid senators, and there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah, it's pretty
Insane.
wild. So over there, the guy who was the leader of the Proud Boys, for example, Enrico Tarrio, he was sentenced to 22 years for seditious conspiracy.
Right? And he wasn't even there in the Capitol.
And what's crazy about this is there's like hardcore pedophiles and legitimate murderers over there, dudes that have snuffed out a couple of lives. Like they've got body counts, a few of these bad hombres. They're not getting 22 years, gentlemen. Like so the penalties certainly do not match the severity of the so-called crime. But once again, there's an entire agenda and narrative over there that says this was as bad as 9/11.
The
there
Proud
are
Boys
prominent
can't
people-
organize meets at the pub, let alone fucking like, you know, like dead set.
An overthrow of the Commonwealth.
I was deep in the Proud Boys. I was a leader, like a proper, well-respected leader during Jan 6, and I'm telling you, there was no. It didn't appear to me from the inside there was any much fucking ability to organize anything at that level. Like it's like, we're going to this pub, let's go for beers, you know. And like if anything they ever did that was spectacular, it was probably by fluke chance or God was on their side. But you know, unfortunately, they're not that incredible. You know what I mean? I wish they were, but they're not.
Standard thing where guys are like, yeah, we should totally get together. Yeah, we should get together. When are we going to get together? I don't know. Like maybe in a few weeks we should get together. Yeah, let's all get together. And no one actually picks a date. No one does anything. We're always, yeah, we'll get together one day. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, let's get together for beers. You saying it's like that?
Yeah, there's no women in the club. It's all blokes.
How does anything get organized then?
Yeah, I think that's why we allow gays, because the gays are supposed to organize everything for us, you know?
Well, that's how Trump won Pennsylvania. There was this mega gay organizer to get out the votes for him.
Yeah.
This long-haired dude.
That's like
Can't remember his
Milo,
name.
fucking Milo Yiannopoulos. Like he's the. I think my theory was Gavin initially started censored TV with Milo because Gavin doesn't work with women, but he'll work with Milo was his like secret weapon. He was as gay to like get shit done.
Do any women work at censored TV? Like,
Not one woman. That's probably why that is also quite unprofessional in some level.
Like being on a
A couple have
submarine.
got shows. But yeah, but
Yeah.
behind the scenes, yeah, they're not working there. So Lily's got a show.
Yeah, Lily's pretty good.
Yeah, Lily was also there with us for the election stream and everything as well.
Oh,
So
sick.
she's good fun, mate. Yeah, I had a bit of a chat with her about you, Dusty. So that was good. She appreciates what you're bringing to the table as well, man. So she said,
Yeah,
"Yeah, if you come
message
over,
me.
we're gonna all go hang out and do a few things."
Nice. Sweet. That's the nigger girl, right? She said nigger and then got in trouble. Or the
As a
world
matter
was
of
like,
fact, yes, she did, and she dropped that coarse language on the stream as well because she's got to live up to her shtick, right?
and because we're streaming on YouTube, YouTube is backed off on their censorship now, Tim? Like, must be true, right?
well, I remember when I was just reporting that Jared Rennick had questioned the COVID vaccines in Senate estimates. I was getting videos taken down for that, just simply reporting on what had happened in our parliament. YouTube was just
I was
completely
constantly getting strikes, and then I'd be like, I'm not doing a live stream, and I think it's a matter of months, and your strikes will disappear.
Yeah, but
I'd be like, fuck, I'm gonna back off, and I just wouldn't stream.
and also they didn't allow election denialism.
I'll let you know how strict they are because I had Stephen Tripp here with me today doing a show, and he talking about being unvaxxed and myocarditis and all this kind of gear and China virus and Wuhan and wet markets and gain of function, and so we went the gamut, and that was all live streaming to YouTube and X and stuff. So I'll see if that stream gets any knockback over the coming days and weeks. I mean, I'm not monetized yet. I think they get harder on you as soon as you're monetized. Although I'm half monetized, so I don't get the ad revenue, but I can get the chats and thanks and stuff.
I'm certainly not monetized anymore.
But
You know,
you can get super chats, Dave.
yeah, I can get super chats.
Hey Dave, it's cool, man, because you can just do what Tim Pool's about to do, and you can just sell out to the Daily Wire, bro.
I will take Jeremy's money every day of the week,
you can get
mate.
across to the Daily Wire and do your show
I have
there.
no problems with Jeremy's money.
But there's going to be a different type of censorship for Tim Pool once he goes to the Daily Wire as well. And the vast majority of his audience, they're actually not quite happy with it. But
is he officially going to DW? Because he streamed there from the election stuff, right? And he was about to shut down because he doesn't know how to run a business. And he's like, oh, running a business is too hard. And rather than do what Crowded did, where he was like, Gerald, you be CEO and you run the freaking business piece while I do the streamy bit. He didn't appoint a business manager, and he's just like, oh, I'm just going to shut it down. I'm like, dude.
Yeah, he's although he's been making several $1 million a year, and congratulations, I celebrate people's success. No dramas with that, 100% capitalism, boys. But yeah, he was unwilling for some unknown reason, maybe because control or who knows what. All he had to do was drop $1 million a year onto 5 people.
Yep.
And he could have paid one or a couple of $100,000.
Get a GM for $250K and then go
100%, and they would have literally ran the operation, taken care of all the things.
He could skateboard and stream as much as he liked.
100%. And instead of that, he had his pity party where he came on there and called out people. Then he turfed Hannah Claire, obviously. Jeremy at the quartering picked her up within 24 hours, and a few other things that happened from there. But yeah, but he's about to have a child and everything now as well, so maybe a few of his motives have changed, and I don't begrudge him for that. But yeah, he could have easily prevented it because he had the capital to be able to do it. and his fan base was large enough, and the ad revenue was big enough, and the commercial
And did he
partnerships
just
were
pull
large
the
enough.
pin? Like, what is he doing? Where's he streaming at? Or
He's still streaming on YouTube,
Yeah.
but yeah, he'll most likely gravitate across to Daily Wire and
Yeah.
do things from there, and that means a few of his panelists, they won't necessarily go there with him. For example, like Luke Radowski. Luke's doing his own show now. He's kicking ass anyway. He's
Yeah,
doing
no
other
way
things.
Luke Radowski would go over to the Daily Wire. He's been a legend way back in almost 20 years ago.
Well, it started with Loose Change. Loose Change
Yeah, and
documentary
he
with Dylan Avery and a couple other
confronted
dudes.
Lucky Larry Silverstein at
He did.
the opening of Freedom Tower.
Yeah, well, actually, Luke Radowski, the background of that is he hooked up with Tim Pool because they were just two dudes that were a little bit upset about what was happening in their country.
Yeah,
when
that's
Wall Street
that's
first
why.
happened
Yeah,
in New York City. So those two guys got together from there. But yeah, I wanted to ask you just one more question, if it's okay as well, Andrew. So the digital ID bill and stuff like that that's happening here in our country right now. Julian Grant, the internet czar, e-safety commissioner, as they like to call her officially. Where do you think all of that stuff is heading, mate? And how problematic is that, considering the government says, look, we've got to ban kids and juveniles and early teenagers from social media because it's harmful. Yet the government has done nothing to stop their free and unabated access to hardcore pornography, which I would submit to you guys, I think is far more harmful to children, particularly with the hypersexualization of them. So on the one hand, they're saying it's dangerous, but on the other hand, they're doing nothing to prevent kids from being able to access stuff, which I think is actually dangerous. What are your thoughts on all that, Andrew?
That's not the point of it. Like, there's still porn books available in the libraries, age inappropriate sex education in the school. No protections from real life grooming.
When we were in primary school, we devised a plan to like steal pornos from the local shop. And it was like full epic. Like, we were like, yeah, mate, we got one guy to go in and be like, right, if you ask him where are the fucking, where's the metho? I can't find methylated spirits. And we like, can you help me find it? And we knew it was in the back corner. So we're like, he'll take you down there, get the methylated spirits, and then just run. Then two of us will run in with our backpack and steal all the porn mags and just fucking run. So we like did this full epic like crazy.
They kept them behind the counter, right?
They were just like, back then pornos were just right there, kind of thing. Like,
but that was proper flash mob style. That was snatch and grab style. So
we did a strategic snatch and grab of the porn mags, and then we were like, fucking yes. The guy came back. The
snatch
guy
and grab
showed
sounds
him where it
appropriate
was.
for those magazines.
Back, and the mate who with the backpack, instead of running out the door, he actually legged it and had to like escape through the back of the shop. So it was like, I didn't actually enter the store. I was just like,
you just got free porn.
We had porn magazines stashed at the park, and we would be like, fucking, I couldn't read. I was like an illiterate.
Reading was why you got them.
The articles.
That's something that we've all been
the
through.
Letters to the editor.
The articles. We're looking at the,
because me and my mates, they'd go to the park, wherever our local park was, and they were buried. They were buried in the bush behind the tree line or something like that, because you never wanted to have those things around you. So the statute of limitations is up. So we'd go about it a different way, Benny Boy. And this wasn't just your picture or People magazine.
We had to go to, but like now
100%. So we'd get old mate to go up to the counter, and he'd ask for $1 worth of lollies or something like that. So the shopkeeper had bent down, and he was putting race cars and strawberry and creams and everything into the bag. And then one of the other boys, he was over at the magazine shelf pretending to read some motorbike or car magazine. He'd pull out the one that was in the plastic. I think it was like Swank magazine or Hustler or Penthouse or whatever it was. They'd drop that to the floor, and then you'd kick it across the floor, just slide it very subtly across the floor and back towards the door, and then open the door, and then sort of just kick it out with your foot and everything as well. So there was no full-on snatch and grab. It was a lot more strategic than that, mate.
Right.
But yeah, Andrew, on the previous question, mate, what are your thoughts on the implementation or potentiality of the implementation of the digital ID bill? Why you find that problematic, and how the government really is trying to utilize that to sell to the Australian people it's for the protection of children, when in reality it might be about actually forcing adults ourselves to have to identify ourselves to participate on the internet.
So what was your question? Sorry.
Digital ID bill.
The under 16s thing.
Do I agree with all of what you said? Well, I think you're largely right. I think it's a thin edge of the wedge sort of style, legislative, trying to get something through as the meme here demonstrates. It's
Brian's meme.
Bringing it in, see, because those 16-year-olds will be, they'll be voting within 10, 20 years, and once they have been under it, they will be less likely. I mean, I'm assuming this is their psychology to oppose it for their, when they bring it in for adults. So it's basically trying to blunt the disenfranchisement of the mainstream media, the legacy or the prestige media, with trying to stop young people being able to access alternate forms of information. I think it's pretty obvious that young people these days are in a much better position. Their media diet is more varied. We all grew up with, Channel 7, ABC, Channel 9, 10 in some cases. And, we had all of us probably here lived through 9/11, and there was just, wall-to-wall anti-Islam, anti-terrorism. And we're still recovering from that hangover. We've got a massive security state, which they're now trying to turn on us because they've run out of runway on the Islamic thing. And so it's anything that restricts the mainstream media and our out of control elites, control over us is a good thing, and anything that, expands that control, as in this bill.
Do you remember when the the Reclaim Australia rallies were happening? Just because you mentioned the Muslim, obviously that was a big part. Like, I remember the first protest I ever went to was a Reclaim Australia rally, and it was like, oh, it's an anti-Muslim protest. And then when I got there, legit, the concern was they were like, if we let in too many Muslim immigrants, and if 0.1% of them are radical and do a terrorist attack, it will the state's powers will grow and will erode our freedoms. That was like legit, like the concern, the main concern that I was put forward from Reclaim Australia that I could hear. And it was the first protest. I'm like, what's it about? I'm going. Social media was new to me. And it was fucking awesome. I loved it, but it seemed very common sense. Like, that was a very common sense thing that patriotic Australians were concerned about. They weren't necessarily like, fuck you, I hate Muslims. They were more worried about the government. Legit.
It was very within what we call the Overton window at that point of time. We were a lot closer to the sort of the 9/11 experience and the media, extravagance that came after it for a long time. So I think it was actually just around the time of ISIS too. So there was a lot of, 2014.
Yeah, there was the Link Cafe siege in Sydney.
Then there was that
in December.
So whether, the establishment sort of throws Anglo-Australians a bone here or there with it did sort of come out of nowhere, right? And any sort of movement that sort of comes out of nowhere. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I don't see Muslims as a demographic threat to Australia. I just don't. Okay. I'd rather be looking at subcontinentals or, Sino-Chinese, Sino.
Well, they're not in Australia so much anymore.
But it is something that a lot of people sort of glom onto because it's, they were brought up that way through the media. And so I can completely understand, and a lot of people got their start at Reclaim, and that's great. It's good to see people are, consciousness is rising and all that sort of stuff. So,
I'd say on the population stuff and the sort of changing demographic, I know that there is a lot of subbies coming in, but also a lot of them do actually want to be Australian, and they want to get involved in community, and they're not looking. Whereas I think the issue where we have with some of the more extreme parts of Islam, which it always ends up there, is the Sharia law stuff, and you're seeing in the UK where they vote as a bloc. And we've got these organizations coming up like the Muslim Vote Matters and things like that, where they're really trying to drive their community that do vote very theocratically based on what the imams say, to swing elections to get their specific things, where I think some of these other communities that might be coming in large numbers, they're not organizing as a cultural bloc to try and change Australian society.
Well, I think you've got to have a sort of a discussion around what really is an Australian, and I think it's time for a more sort of tribal concept. I think that's the way the world's going. It's moving away from these sort of national ideas and going to more. When I say national, I mean sort of anyone who comes here becomes an Australian by some sort of process.
There's a cultural belief. There's a core thing that is the Australian thing, right?
And I think people are moving away from that idea. I'll be
moving away from civic nationalism. I used to be like a civic nationalist. I was like, people can become Australian in the sense, and then now I have moved away from that in the sense that you can't come to this country now. At this point, people coming to the country have destroyed housing prices, wages, everything. They've actually destroyed.
That's not necessarily their fault. I mean, the government should have regulated the numbers, right? And I make this point that they've bought into a dream. They can come to Australia, we can have a house and enjoy our climate and so on. And then they come here and everything's expensive. There's no homes. Like by over immigrating when we're not ready for it, we're actually dudding the illegal immigrants that are coming in through the right channels too. That's balls.
Yeah. Well, I think the Anglo community has failed to sort of raise up an alternate elite to this system. We sort of think that parliamentary politics or big politics is going to save us, as in these, Trump figures and already alternate, the tech elite with Elon and stuff and the Zionist lobby. They've already sort of taken control of the Trump movement, you could argue, looking at the pics. And so I think our next priority is to really sort of raise up an alternate elite, because I don't know if this sort of trailer park nationalism is really going to, I love the fact there's guys with the Trump flags and the utes and stuff, but at the end of the day, when it comes time to sort of pitch to investors and fund managers, and we're not even in the room. Does that make sense? Like, as a community, we don't have a seat at the table. We're not accepted into the establishment or its media. And so we sort of take a very sort of reticent, retiring position on, on high culture, on standards, on excellence, because these are the sort of things that people are drawn to in leadership. And we're not sort of.
Well, I think.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think because of the cancel culture and how the left have taken over, there are people in the right that have power, that have money, that could have status and could speak up, but they don't, and they sit on it. And we were discussing like Stallone and others came out and started sort of backing Trump a bit more once he got elected. Like, I saw what's her face from Family Ties, Justine Bateman, come out, and everyone's fawning over her because she said, "Oh, we don't have to walk on eggshells anymore. Isn't this great?" Everyone's like, "Oh, wow, she's standing up for free speech." I'm like, "No, she's not. She's just riding on the coattails of the Trump win." And so there are people there on the conservative, on the right side, that are not speaking up for fear of the consequences. And if they did, maybe they could change culture. Maybe they could actually help shift things. And I think it seems like there's some mixed feelings in here around the Daily Wire. I think that's one of the things I do like about Jeremy's stance there, is that he's like, we want to build culture for the right. We are going to take a stand, and we're going to build media. We're going to build things. We're going to make products that you can buy from us because we don't hate you and your values. Buy our razors and our chocolates. And as corny as some of that stuff is, he's going, I'm giving you an alternative to give your money to us to help build an alternative to bring people out of the dark, bring people into the fold. So, yeah, I think you're right. I think the left elite establishment has taken over, and I think there are powerful people on the right and voice on the right and money on the right, but it just refuses to stand up for risk of getting its head cut off.
Dave, do you see yourself as a Anglo-Saxon or as a right-winger? Or what do you see first? What's your like consciousness in terms of identity? Where you are?
An Australian.
Okay, so you're civic. I'm assuming that's a civic sort of.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm no middle-aged, straight white Christian man. Like I tick all the oppressor boxes. If you want to play that game, so I don't mind it. I'm a human, and I do what I do, and I think Australia's a great country, and I think we have a lot to offer.
Okay, as far as you're concerned,
we should offer it to our children first,
right? Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, for the people of Australia, and I think that there is some merit to Australia first, and people go, "Oh, you're pulling the ladder up after you," and all that kind of stuff. But the problem is, this is like putting your own oxygen mask on first. If we don't make sure that Australia is great for the people that are already here, then there's going to be nothing to invite people into. And like I've got great mates and people that are either first or second generation immigrants. I think
we're going to become the third world. Like I reckon we could see this country become the third world in our generation. Like if we don't pull the fucking ladder up now, we could fucking destroy the West. And there's nowhere to go. The world will just be third world shitholes.
On your thing, Andrew, around identity and stuff, I'm trying to break it down and understand. So when I say Australian, I'm like, I grew up in the 80s. So an Australian is, the Ocker, the Bogan, the Barbie on the weekend, enjoys a cricket and a beer, doesn't mind a V8. It's Holdens versus Fords. It's that kind of identity of Australian culture. Not I'm white, so I'm Australian, but I believe in these core things around have a fair go, have a laugh, don't take things too seriously. Like mateship, those core essences of being Australian.
So we'd say that's like propositional identity, if that makes sense. That's
okay. I don't know all the technical terms.
Most people in this world have what's called an ethnic identity. Okay, most identity is by its nature, identity ethnic. So if you're going to rule that sort of off the table, you're looking at a very different style of country. You're looking at just an economic country, an economic propositional country. Whereas I think where a lot of people are moving towards is a recognition of some sort of ethnic basis for that identity, whether it's Australian or otherwise. And I think that's something we need to sort of explore as Australians. What does it mean to be an Anglo-Saxon, an Anglo-Celt? And yes, I know we've all been brought up in the liberal school establishment. We've all been to the high schools and the universities and the whole thing. And I think it's time for something new. I think we've got to move away from this sort of baby boomer idea of, have a fair go and slap your mate on the back and, Anzac Day and, she'll be right. And I think we've got to have some sort of, tough chats about what is
my next censored TV episode. This is the thumbnail for my next censored episode. Sorry, Andrew, but it's
excellent
relevant.
Thumbnail as well. Awesome thumbnail.
Thanks, bro. It should be up tomorrow, but Ryan is Gavin's co-host, or and
he's Japanese slave. He's Japanese slave on the show.
Puerto Rican Japanese slave and Gavin are arguing. So he usually uploads my episode. It might not come out this week, but this is the thumbnail. We went to the British Australian community, did an event maybe a month ago, and it was brilliant. I've been hanging out with Harry, the CEO of British Australian community, and he wrote a book, Anglophobia. I've been reading that book, and I think they articulate, without they're a lobbying group for Anglo-Celtic Australians, and they articulate what we need to do to retain Australia as a first world civilized nation. And we don't have to become the third world. We don't have to destroy this nation. We can and we can embrace, I do love all the things Dave was saying, like the four, Bathurst and the Australia Day and Anzac Day and the Boganism. I'm the Dusty Bogan. I love Boganism. I absolutely do. But like you're saying, Andrew, to have a more sophisticated way to defend beyond Boganism, we have to actually defend our bloodline and our family trees. It's not just the Bogan culture and Australia Day. There is our family trees, our family bloodlines, and we have to preserve them because our children. I look at my children, and they are just awesome. I love my sons, and I know the life. I'm a blue collar worker, and this country actually provided me a great lifestyle and a great life. And I can see it slipping away every year. It's slipping away, and I don't have to be a nasty piece of shit to people to preserve what we've got, but we have to be clear that we can't let this country drift into the third world.
Yeah, and I think we can also celebrate, the positive aspects. It doesn't need to be an anti-immigrationist movement. It can sort of be we raise up a community and allow our detractors to come at us, if that makes sense.
Well, they've been doing plenty of that for 20, probably 30 plus years.
But people are afraid to argue the point because I don't want to seem racist. Oh, I don't want to seem like a bigot. And so because these labels get thrown around, people get scared.
Of course,
but they're racist to us.
No, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, Dusty, because the elite study. Andrew, sorry.
We know what the problems are. We've got to look at a new form of organisation where we get away from this idea of the mass political movement, which worked for, various groups back in the 20s and 30s, and move towards the political / lifestyle community, which the left adopted from, I would say that, the 50s onwards, when they sort of, folded up the communist parties in the West and adopted the new left model of organisation, where you have, these inner city communities, artistically based communities, usually close to centres of power like universities. I mean, we've got to acknowledge that this is a legalistic culture we live in. We're not living in 1890s, settler, squatter, not select. This is not Dave's selection anymore, right? Real power is in bureaucracies. It's in media. It's in, having staffers. And if we really want to do the right things by our grandchildren, these are the avenues of power we've got to start to exercise. And these are realities we've got to grapple with. And I mean, so that's the organisation the left sort of adopted from the 50s onwards. There's no sort of left-wing political parties. They just have communities, and they send their operatives from those communities. Newtown in Sydney, Brunswick Street in Melbourne, you could say South Bank in Brisbane, I guess, into spots in the media, the universities, and the bureaucracy and other places of influence. You've heard of Antonio Gramsci. You've heard of the Long March through the institutions. It's these sort of physical power bases. We've got to raise up Anglo-Saxon power bases in our major urban centres that are economically viable. And yes, where people who are scared of being called those things can congregate, right, and have power together, right? And yes, we're going to be a minority, and so what? Accept it, right? It's always organised minorities that rule society. It's never majorities. Right?
Dusty, are we live on any of your platforms? Because all of the comments are coming up as
maybe they're not. Maybe they're not.
I didn't find it. It's not live on YouTube, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's live on my YouTube and X, and it's live on Dave's X.
Oh well, at least we got there.
Yeah, no dramas. Andrew, I did have one to
when we started.
Andrew, I've got one to put to you, mate, so you can expand further. I think I was sort of understanding what you're putting forward there. So we'd all hope to avoid a balkanization, which we feel will take place in this country if we have unfettered migration. But most importantly, like you're talking about, we formulate these ethnic enclaves. There isn't a demand from government for new arrivees to assimilate assimilation is now considered xenophobic. And what we're trying to avoid is Australian people of British heritage, of Anglo heritage, for example, feeling dispossessed and therefore having stolen and robbed and being deprived of what was their birthright. Our grandfathers obviously worked tirelessly, and the people that came before them worked tirelessly, and they struggled and they overcame. We're meant to inherit something here. Australia is meant to be a jewel amongst the nations. We're practically the size of the United States. We haven't even got a tenth of the population size. We're rich in natural resources. Australians are struggling. Housing affordability, cost of living, etc., is going out of control. So opportunities are being deprived from us, mate. So yeah, the balkanization of Australia, unless we encourage the assimilation, but most importantly, we take control of what's going on there, and a resentment which will naturally occur within people who have heritage in this nation when they see people coming here more recently than what they've been here, several generations, and they're doing much better, and Australians who have been here for a long time being thrown overboard.
Yep.
When did assimilation become a dirty word?
It should have never have been a dirty word.
No, I'd like your take on that, Andrew. Yeah.
What was your question? Sorry, I missed that.
When did assimilation become a dirty word? Why did it become a dirty word?
Well, I think assimilation never really was ever in practice.
Or integration, perhaps, is maybe a friendlier term.
I just look. I don't think the communities that came here no one actually really took it seriously. I mean, I'm from Sydney. I've never actually met anyone who really practiced that. I don't think it's sort of like one of those open secrets that, of modern Western societies. They sold us this sort of thing in school and stuff, and then it didn't really occur in reality. So I think we can all just sort of get rid of it. I think we can.
Just don't expect it, or don't.
But that's what they did with multiculturalism. They got rid of it.
Yeah.
They were like, "No, it doesn't." They were just embraced multiculturalism. They threw civic nationalism in the bin.
Yeah, I think all these sort of things are basically when they had the monopoly of the media, they could really push these, Orwellian it's called doublethink, right? And I think the sooner us as Anglos lose our, illusions around these terms, the better. And that doesn't mean to say we're going to get angry and do anything crazy. We're realists, right? We want to survive. We're a part of the salad bowl. We just want to leave the movement in a slightly better condition than what we found it, and we want a place at the table. We don't even have that. So how can we talk about federal immigration policy or economic policy or all these other things people seem the right to argue about, and they want to, So as far as assimilation, integration, multiculturalism go, I think these are sort of, these are moot points. No one ever really believed in them except for a few Anglos, right? So the sooner we move on from our,
For me, the biggest realization that it's over is like concreting. We'll be like, we get a heap of work in and we're like, we need workers now. And we just get the third world fresh off the plane immigrants, and we're trying to get them jobs. We're trying to pump
them in. Of us not having raised up an alternative, the
most
or a community.
A common form of temporary workers is the Pacific Islander fruit pickers. That's what springs to mind.
But this is where I'm coming at, is that there was, before COVID, I could tell a new worker, a young Aussie out of school, or an immigrant, I could be like, yeah, mate, you'll be able to afford to buy a home by working here. You'll be able to save up, buy the ring, get married, have kids, and you'll have a great life, mate. And we can work together side by side every day, making money. She'll be right. And now I can't tell. Doesn't matter if it's a young Bogan from Ipswich or it's a fresh off the boat immigrant. I can't tell them about the great, normal, stable, steady life because it's unaffordable. The work, like cops today, firefighters, nurses, teachers. These are the tradies, young cops, young fireys, young teachers, young nurses. They probably will never afford to buy a house. That's the reality. The
Speak
people
about that,
who are
Penny,
propping
right?
up this country, them foundational trades and skills, the people we all rely on when someone's having a heart attack or your kid breaks their arm and that paramedic comes to save the day, and we'll be looking them in the eye and we'll say, we've created a society where the heroes to come save you, the people building the skyscrapers, can't afford a fucking life anymore. So what have we have fucked it up.
Is that why so many tradies buy caravans? Because they can't afford a house?
Yeah, I reckon, like, honest to God.
Well, they're buying tinnies. They're buying tinny boats, mate, when they should be buying fiberglass bloody outboards, mate. They should be buying good boats, and they're buying tinnies instead. And this is the other thing. So we've got guys in this country that are making $1,500 a week, which is, it's a reasonable wicket, $1,500 a week for people to get by on. And they're going broke, mate. Yeah. They can't afford to buy a house on $1,500 a week, and so something's going backwards here. And I've got a real world example of this. So only a couple of days ago, I was a real estate agent. I was checking out some local properties around here, and they had some flyers from these exact same properties and the prices of them in 1999 through to 2001. These houses, man, which were on the water here in the Gold Coast, 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom swimming pool with a pontoon at the back, a pontoon, boys, so you could hook up your boat or your jet ski. They were just shy of $400,000. Right now, today, 1.7 might buy you one. 1.7 million. So they've gone from $400,000 in 99 to 2001 to $1.7 million plus today. That's practically a generation, which makes them cost prohibitive. Where I've been working as well recently, another big residential apartment tower in Main Beach, and fair enough, Main Beach is quite expensive here on the Gold Coast, but it's a 30-story tower. The minimum price to get in here, man, is $2.8 million for a 2-bedroom apartment. $2.8 million for a 2-bedroom apartment on the Gold Coast, and fair enough, there's plenty of, and we're sold out as well. Rest assured, we're sold out. We're over 90% sold out, and it'll be ready by the end of the year. But the people who have purchased them are well-heeled people from interstate, or they're international people that are going to arrive here and they're using that. They're going to use it as a holiday home or whatever it may be.
I mean, some properties just completely, it's unhinged, right? Like I remember hearing Matt Barry, the CEO guy from freelancer.com. He was talking about some apartment that was going to go for like 24 million or some ridiculous like amount on the Sydney coastline. And
it's worse in Sydney.
Well, and he was saying, I went and did the maths on he's like, you could buy a brand new off-the-shelf 5-star cruise liner with sort of 1,700 berths or something for that amount of money. Like it's insane, the comparison of what that money would buy versus a little 600 square foot balcony apartment with a view of the ocean from Sydney. It's ridiculous.
Well, you're right, Dave, because in this same building where the minimum is 2.8 for a 2-bedroom apartment, once you get to the top 2 floors, they're being sold as sub penthouse and penthouse. The sub penthouse is 26 million. Right. The penthouse is $30 million. It only comes with 4 car parks. But they're being sold. Someone's paid $30 million for it, and it's not beachfront. It's 2 blocks back from the beach in Main Beach as well. But the V8 supercars run through there. The track comes through there as well. So I guess it's a good time for that.
You get blokes like that, Anthony Portelli, the guy who sells raffle tickets, buying them, and then as a big sort of
LMCT plus. Yeah, he's utilizing a loophole in the lottery laws to be able to sell the dream to people, like pay $20 a month and you'll be able to win a McLaren or whatever it is. But he's just gone in and paid $1 million over for properties on the block of Phillip Island. He acquired every single property, and the reason why he did it in this instance is because on the strata title for where I think there were 5 apartments there.
I didn't
watch
the
swimming pool, there's grounds, or the block or whatever it was. Yeah, there's swimming pools. There's a tennis court.
What was a resort they redid this year, right, on Phillip Island?
Yeah, that's right. So he looked at it and said, you know what? That's cool. I'll pay overs because if I want, I can bulldoze all 5 houses tomorrow, even though he paid like I think $80 million for the lot. He can bulldoze it, bro. He can get a planning permit because he'll be able to put some cash in the pocket of a local councillor on the approvals board or whatever it may be. And all he needs is a high-rise tower on that thing, mate, or a multi-story tower. And he'll be able to make his money going forward. And really, it's land banking. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing land banking, and land banking isn't assisting us. It's certainly not assisting us. And yeah, man, if you haven't got $1 million, forget about it. You're not going to get a place anywhere. I saw a tweet earlier on today from a prominent Australian female, and she said, look, she was comparing prices for medium home prices. Australia basically is a world leader almost in that, where we've exceeded California, and in some areas we've exceeded New York. Where in Sydney alone, you got to have 1.6 million. And if you ain't got 1.6 million, you're not going to get into the market in suburban Sydney, or metropolitan Sydney, I should say. And that's problematic because that makes it cost prohibitive for the exact people that Ben was talking about. Your tried and tested, your cops, your firemen, your nurses, your school teachers. And this is the reason why a lot of those individuals in those sectors, they're launching industrial action against the government, because they're saying 100 grand a year isn't good enough for us anymore. We need 140, we need 150 to be able to keep up with this. So yeah, it's a road to misery, and if we don't arrest it somehow, some way pretty soon, we're going to find a nation of renters. And a nation of renters is stock standard in many countries around the world, and has been that way for 50 years. But in Australia, it was never meant to be that way.
That's what they're wanting to erase the great Australian dream and reaccustom, particularly through new Australians. Obviously, going back to the World Economic Forums, you'll own nothing and be happy. Like a lot of they're trying to get people to get used to living in high-rise apartments or in these 15-minute cities around these, not just the inner city, but these suburban activity centres. That's what they're called in Melbourne. And a lot of these are called build to rent. And of course, so there's no even attempt at we want people, families to buy them.
It's dystopian communism, right? It's like if you don't own anything, the state controls the assets, the state controls things, they can choose where you live. Dusty, I put a link in the chat. Do you want to bring that one up? It's funny as far as the cost of property relative in Australia to other things. But I think Tucker Carlson called this out in Australia when he was here, saying it's insane. The government's number one job should be making it so people can buy a house and start a family. A lot of people don't want to start families, and we know the fertility rate is through the floor. But their number one priority should be making it so people want to have families and grow families, you know, to keep the bloodlines going, Dusty, so that we can continue to progeny and continue our species as Australians with a bit of that ethnocentricity. But if no one can buy a house, no one's starting families, no one's having kids, and we just replace ourselves with the immigrants. I mean, that's why people talk about the great replacement theory, is because the white people are being discouraged from having their children, and these economic migrants are coming over, and they're not having any of those problems.
Hey, and Dave, just on that as well. So it's the responsible adults that actually wish to raise intact families that aren't multi-generational alcoholics, gamblers,
not relying on welfare.
Law-abiding people who understand that they need a certain amount of capital behind them because they'd like to put their kids through private school, perhaps, or at least be engaged. They're the ones who aren't having children, my man. They're the ones, because they're wise in that sense, right? So they're responsible. They don't wish to raise their children in poverty, and they know by having children they are barely getting by now. So they're going to drown if they do bring kids into this world. So
100%.
We're having the good people who should be having children who are actually being prevented in many ways by the cost of living increase, that aren't having children. But the lower socioeconomical people, the people who don't give a shit about their kids whatsoever, the multi-generational welfare recipients or whatever it may be, right? I'm not casting aspersions on all of them, but we're talking about people who are extremely irresponsible. They're having as many kids as they like, mate, and they do not give a shit. And that's not going to be beneficial for the country going forward. Andrew, go ahead on that, mate.
And I think it's very clever what you said there about those. That class of people who are being denied their biological future. That is who we will be looking to for our cadre in the future. And I think I know that, this is all terrible and everything, but in a way, it's a good thing because we needed to go through this. This is the wage of not having a voice. This is the fruits of not having an elite, not having anything really, and just sort of, bludging around. She'll be right. Another prawn on the barbie. Sling on a wife beater and have a great time, right? Whereas every other country in the world doesn't live in this illusion, right? If you lose your voice, other people will just come in and take advantage of you, right? And your own elite will come in and take advantage of you. Look at our elites. Look what they've done. They're just selling us out.
Yeah.
So I think that class of people who you mentioned are going to be our, revolutionary elite and new cadre. And I think we should start trying to recruit them in earnest. And yes, these are the sort of economic arguments we've got to be, starting to craft. But yeah, these are the people who we're going to be pitching towards, and we've got to start looking at that seriously.
Well, on that as well, so there is a reluctance by the conservative side of government in this country, particularly the Liberals, to even do anything against negative gearing because they think, well, that's going to affect the boomers and they're going to lose that vote.
Edges.
Yeah, but on that point though, the thing is, those boomers, they're on fixed incomes for the duration of their retirement, but they're actually hemorrhaging money because they're going through their retirement funds at a vastly more accelerated pace than what they thought when they actually planned for their retirement as a result of the cost of living increase. So with the cash they set aside, let's just call it $1 million, they thought they could survive the next 20 years on 50 grand a year. Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? They're bleeding through that cash in 12 or 13 years. And so they've got problems. They've got big problems because now they're out of the workforce. They're going to have more cash coming in. Their kids want mum and dad to sell the house so they can split it between themselves to even be able to get a deposit to be able to buy a bloody house. But that means they've got to live somewhere. So people are reluctant to even sell their properties in the current market, knowing that if they do sell what they've got, they'll take an initial reap that reward, but then they've got to go and purchase in the market for overs anyway. So they're going to end up with less for more.
Yeah, bigger mortgage.
And how the fuck does that make any sense?
Bigger repayments, yeah. That thing Dusty had, I love it. It's like this giant French castle. It's like $2.5 million with this piece of crap house here in Australia for over $5 million. Just our property market system is completely
and that's criminal. Does anyone want to speak about the criminal money laundering aspect of it, where the exorbitant prices being paid for some of these homes in Sydney or where it may be in obscure suburb? We're not talking about beachfront and Bondi for every single example of this. We're talking about someone who has come in a consortium of people who arrive at an auction. They'll literally blow the auction out of the water like they are Mr. LMCT. He's doing it for other reasons, right? He's doing it as different. But these people are coming from different lands. They're getting together. Multiple families are unifying, and they're paying $1 million over for a property.
It's a supply and demand issue. There's not enough, so people keep paying more if they've got the ability to pay more. And because there's not enough supply, and there's too much demand because we've let too many people in. There's too many people coming in. They need more houses than we can have. We've got all these building regulations. We had lockdowns and everything. So the building industry collapsed. We're not building enough new supply. So that drives the prices up. Like, that is economics 101, the supply and demand issue. And then they go and try and attack, a lot of the mum and dad investors with negative gearing and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, it is just trying to deflect the damage you've done with bad immigration policy on these poor people that actually tried to be industrious and look after their future and not rely on pensions and so on. I reckon, for the people that are trying to go down that path, I'm like, great, get rid of negative gearing. I'm 100% behind getting rid of negative gearing if you also massively reform income tax and slash income taxes. Because if you're paying very little income tax, there's nothing in the negative gear off. You don't need negative gearing to offset your income tax if you're not paying income tax.
Can we make...
sorry, Dusty, let me throw this one at you and then jump into the back of it, because we've spoken about this privately. So I've been asking many people, like hundreds and hundreds of people that I've encountered in various elements of my work in my private life and things like that as well, who are working across various sectors. And these are school teachers, these are nurses, these are your construction types of guys. These are our service people who are doing good, but they're typically middle class. And I've said to them, well, what if a government or a major party came forward and they said, listen, the government's going to reach into your pocket and tax you for 38 hours a week? Fine, we all accept that. But anything over 38 hours, all of your overtime, you will retain 100% of that. If you did vote Labor, but if Liberal proposed it, would that be enough for you to change your mind and vote for that party if you knew that was going to be the result of it? They've said yes in 100% of the cases. And conversely, when I've asked Liberal supporters if Labor would propose such a thing, tradies, school teachers, whatever it may be, ask those people who are typically Liberal supporters, would they vote for Labor if that was the policy? At 100% of instances, they've all said yes as well. So, and we also have a reluctance from those people to actually want to do overtime, to work on Saturdays, to be more productive for the country, to bring in more cash, because they get raped and pillaged by earning that extra bit of money, and they go to 46, 47 cents in the dollar as well. So they're being absolutely hemorrhaged and
disgusting.
slaughtered for their desire to want to do better for themselves.
Yeah, there's so many things like cut immigration. Number one, we need to just say like,
Well, that would that
Mark.
that, that would
Mark
be
Boris,
certainly the first step.
first step, cut immigration, but then we've got to do the tax reform. So Mark Boris from Yellow Brick Road, the guy is the Australian Apprentice. He's like the Donald Trump, right? He said cap immigration at 150,000 a year, and he said make interest rates tax deductible on the family home. So he's his life goal is to get every Australian to buy a home. That's his life goal. He runs Yellow Brick Road Bank. So like, and then, Trump I think Trump said no tax on tips or overtime. So imagine if you did that combination of things and we can restore this country. But there is no vision. There's no talk of how can a concreter, how can this panel of people come up with practical ideas to improve the nation? Yet our political class don't give a fuck. They can't think of these things.
Go for it, Andrew.
Well, they don't believe in them. Both parties, they think about just, we've got to get as much tax revenue as possible without the people noticing it. That's their strategy.
No, I think both parties are being paid off by big developers in terms of Meriton, Harry Triguboff. We do have an old.
Well, you do need people to build the homes. New homes are a good thing.
It's not a housing shortage. I think we're dealing with here, Tim.
That's one of the issues. The fact that
that's a cover. That's just a cheap. That's avoiding the issue. The real issue here is mass immigration and the politicians.
I'm saying do both.
Right. Well, I think if you got rid of the one, you wouldn't need to worry about the other. If you look at Australia's population growth, it's negligible.
I think Matt Barry called that out. Like we had a requirement for net zero new homes prior to all this giant immigration boom, because if people were building, it was a lot of knockdown rebuilds. We didn't need this massive new urban sprawl.
Right. I think you're dealing with a country which is addicted to immigration as an economic growth mechanism, whereas it really shouldn't be based on laying down slabs of concrete and putting people in. That's not real economic growth. I'm sorry. That's not economic growth. Is productive. It's not speculation in real estate. That's speculation. Okay, that's bubble territory.
It's invention, it's industry, it's exports. It's not.
The bubble will burst in our lifetime, and it will be fucking tragic.
But just flesh that out, Andrew. Flesh that out, mate.
Killing themselves.
That we will long have ceased to be a relevant aspect of this country. I'm talking about Anglo-Australians. By the time it does burst, I mean, there's billions of people they can keep flooding us into. I don't see it bursting anytime soon.
That's what Mark Boris said on the Today Show. He said they were like, "Should we keep buying property, Mark?" And he said, "Yes, because it's a supply and demand issue, and we're going to keep bringing more and more people into the country."
To your question, Dusty, what can we do? I think we can start voting as a community, as a bloc, right? We shouldn't be wedded to the Liberal Party. You don't see the Lebanese community doesn't vote as a bloc. The Jewish community doesn't vote as have it vote singular to a political party. All these communities vote as a bloc, but they're not loyal to political parties, and we've got to get away from this idea that a single political party is our future. We've got to go to whoever serves us best. And these people are like, these politicians are prostitutes. Once we can start backing them up with people who can hand out and at polling places, put up corflutes, donate money to campaigns, they'll be having Anglo-Saxon community dinners for us too in Chatswood, right? In parts around Sydney, just like they do for the Chinese community, right? And as soon as we get over this sort of residual boomer idea that we can't organise as Anglos, that we aren't worthy of it, right? That somehow, because we watch too much Mississippi Burning or Schindler's List, we're not allowed to do this sort of stuff. As soon as we get that idea over our head, that's when we're going to see politicians coming over and, batting in our favour.
I think Australians aren't taught civics well, or they weren't in my time. I don't know whether it's getting any better. I did go on the Canberra trip with my son a couple of years ago for a year 6 trip, but he's in year 6. They're not going to remember that by the time they're voters. But like, I didn't really understand preferences till I was in my 40s. And people don't understand that. So when you talk about mobilizing and using your vote, I think, and I say this as a person who joined my local Liberal branch to try and make a difference from the inside, because I looked at all the splinter parties, and when they're all a mess, we can bring something back. And my local branch is good conservatives, like great people, like they're on board. They're not the lefties that have destroyed the party. But I'm like, I say, don't put Liberals first. Like, look at your area, look at the independents, look at who is actually saying the right things and doing the right things, and give them your 1, 2, 3s. And then at the bottom of the ballot, go Liberal, Labor, Greens in that order. That way, you've not wasted your vote. It'll still fall there, but they get the message. They lost the primary vote, and they lose money for not getting the primary vote.
Yeah, and I think that's all good, but it really sort of turns on the fact of whether it's a sort of a 5%. There's a sort of an Anglo. If we can just sort of get a white vote operating across most of the electorates, that's a sort of a 2 to 3 to 5% is a lot of people. And if we can sort of swing, and we can take this on electorate by electorate basis, we can ring up.
That's what Muslim Votes Matter is doing. So you're saying we should have a White Votes Matter version of that, where they look at the electorates, look at the percentage of the thing, and say we can swing this much if we all vote together.
Because mate, we're across every single electorate in this country, right? We are a sleeping giant.
And that's how Trump won.
Not really.
Not
really. Anyway, sorry. Completely different analogy. I'm sorry, Tim.
Sweet. I reckon we'll wrap it up. We're approaching, getting a bit on in time. But thanks for coming on, gentlemen. And
thank you.
Can I just say something, Dusty, before we do for whoever's listening? They have opened up the submissions for the under 16 social media restrictions bill thing for 24 hours. They are trying to jack this thing through the Senate before Christmas, and they've got 1 sitting week left. So they've had the inquiry open. They dropped the bill today in the House, and then it's gone through for Senate inquiry next week on Monday or Tuesday, I think. And so they've got 1 day, today and tomorrow, to get submissions in. So if you want to have your voice heard, this is not just trying to do a cheeky plug, but go to daverightnow.substack.com and look up my today's video called Under 16 Social Media Ban Legislation is Worse Than You Can Imagine. And in there, I've got the links to where you can submit your objection. And I've even put in a draft of what I put. I used Grok. I went into Grok and said, hey, I have this problem with this bill, and here are my things, and blah, blah, blah. Can you compose a thing? And gave me a beautifully worded thing that then I just tweaked and sent through. So if you haven't yet, please just wherever you find it, but the easiest place might be just go daverightnow.substack.com and then look at today's video, and the links are there. There's a draft you can use, but please submit something and just show them that there's a lot of people that are against this Trojan horse. The bill is a blank check. There's basically saying, trust us, we'll do something in other legislative rules later. Just open the door and allow us to have this power to do this thing. And it is atrociously broad, and it's bad legislation that we need to complain about. Otherwise, it's likely to go through. But on using your vote thing, there's the House and those MPs, but there's also the Senate. And I think we need to be a lot more strategic about getting a stronger crossbench that's not controlled by the Greens and people that will actually hold the major parties to account. I did hear someone say once there should be no parties in the Senate because the Senate's the House of Review. There should be 0 parties in the Senate. And I go, that would be nice if they were all just there to get the best outcomes with their own individual ideas. It's like local councils shouldn't have parties. Same idea, I think, but they do. But I think we need to be clever. But anyway, submit against the under-16s. You've only got today and tomorrow. Like it's a Friday. If you miss it, you missed it. And then it is what it is.
Yes. Email your federal senator and your federal members. You can find the email on the Australian Parliamentary website. They'll ask you what suburb you're just find an address from that senator or member's electorate, and then pop that in the form as well, and then they'll take your email seriously. So yeah, good luck everyone. For the audience members as well, thanks for watching.
Thank you.
Andrew, where can we find you, mate? What's your X handle, buddy?
Big Think 888.
Big Think 888, like 888 Racing.
Like 888 Racing.
He's bringing that big think energy.
Maybe thick,
we'll chuck
but
you in
it's about big
the
thinking.
description of the episode next time.
Yeah, 100%. And Andrew, do you participate in Twitter Spaces occasionally, mate, or
Sometimes.
not really? Yeah, because there's a few ladies and a couple of Aussies that have been running some Twitter Spaces every single Tuesday night. They've actually coordinated between people in multiple states, and they've been putting out the email addresses and the phone numbers of particular politicians that they thought would be favourable to us. They've been successful in that campaign. They had a little bit of a win last week, they thought, but they're right there at the forefront of this as well. So I think you'd be excellent. I'll reach out to Fran and Clea, who are the hosts of that, and tell them to get you on. I think you'd be extremely beneficial on there for people to hear your message going forward. And yeah, also, gentlemen, Benny, I'll just the final thing I'd say then as well. Oh, no, Tim, you can go ahead, mate. Sorry, buddy. I'll chime in last.
Oh, my final thought. Yeah, certainly I concur with Dave about this social media ban for under 16s. That's of course being sold as protect the children, but it's a digital ID Trojan horse, and it's also so the left and the Liberal Party just useful idiots in this, so that they can gain control over the youth, so they can determine what they see and hear, keep them indoctrinated in the classroom and wherever else, mainstream media.
Okay, and a final one from me, and thanks a lot, Dusty. You know I love you, mate. Let's get a few things organised, and let's get into bloody Gavin, bud. Let's get you on a plane with me. Let's get over there to DC for the inauguration, bro. I got a couple of girls who are going to dress up like they're from that TV show, The Handmaid's Tale or whatever, where they think they're all going to be put back in the kitchen. So they're going to dress up like that on inauguration day. I'm going to be there as Trump, mate, and I'm going to have a ball and chain attached to them as well. And when we do interviews there, they're going to go to speak, and obviously I'll scream at them, silence! And they'll say, I've only been allowed out of the kitchen for this day, so I could be told to be silent. So we're going to play it up a few different ways. It's going to be a lot of fun, my man. Come across to DC. There's a few coming across. Chris Covers will be there, a few other dudes as well. So if anyone would like to be involved, by all means. So whilst I'll forever remain an optimist about the people and the people of Australia, great people here, and it was lovely to meet you as well, Andrew. I think you have considered thoughts, mate. I'd love to afford you an opportunity to expose yourself to more people. I think you should be more well known because you're extremely considered and you're well spoken and you understand the message. I'll never be a pessimist about.
Thanks for the glaze, boy.
No, that's all right, man. It's not a real riz. It's not a real riz. I think it's worthy. I think you've earned it. So well done. Yeah, I'm an optimist about the people, but I'll never not be a pessimist about our politicians. At least most of them, because they're bought and paid for. They appear to be working not in the best interest for all Australians. It's a globalist game of conquest, and short of massive bloodshed, they will not reverse the course. And we're trying to avoid that, right? And regardless if it happens in 10 footy seasons or 20, at some point in time, if you back people into the corner long enough, there will be a retaliation from that.
Have you been writing these? Do you have these like sort of written out before you come on?
I've got a couple of things here, but they're sort of just talking points. But I'm just rolling with stuff, ad-libbing, if that's all right, man. Is that okay, dude, or not really? No, this.
I love it. I love it. It's
He's got
good.
a teleprompter.
I love it.
Now.
Well, I do, but it's not set up at the moment.
You sort of look to the side and you sort of start reading. It's good.
I've got a few things here. I'm glancing at stuff to try to get through a couple of talking points. But yeah, I think the digital ID is leading to internet licenses, which leads to private property seizures, wage garnishing, incarceration for individuals who do not comply with what the government's demands will be. And I think that's extremely problematic. I think we're on a fast track to a 1984 existence, and that's something we'd hope to avoid. So in reality, I think we're all coming at it for the right reasons. The government doesn't seem intent on, listening to us. And actually
Although ironically,
fulfilling
they're
the
locking in cash, so that sort of blocks the CBDC strategy.
Yeah, so I don't think my remarks in many cases are actually hyperbolic. I think they're sort of a warning, canary in the coal mine, as it were,
I don't
for
see.
a future we wish to avoid in 2028 going forward if it's not implemented sooner.
Can I jump in, Dusty, before we finish up? Once more, just pick up what Australia Talk just mentioned there. I don't think the issue that they're prostitutes is a bad thing. Politicians I'm talking about, because that means that when we've got something to offer them, they'll do what we want. Does that make sense? So that's on us to organise. It's not really. I mean, you're always going to have those that in this Westminster that style of politician, right? So we've just got to start playing by the rules. Does that make sense? Anyway,
Absolutely. Right, lads, we'll wrap it up. Thanks for tuning in.